Hey everyone, this is Kyle Lamont, the founder and host, with a quick update. ConcertCast and the production company Good to Go Studios are now part of Vemory, a platform dedicated to gig tripping and concert culture, made for fans who go the distance. You can learn more about Vemory at VEMORII.live. Here is where you can also subscribe to our new talk show. It's called Concert Chat, and it's the only video podcast reviewing music venues and the performance immediately after the encore, all from a car parked outside the venue. It's a ticket holder tell-all. But now, for the origins of Vemory, ConcertCast, the only immersive travel podcast recorded from on the road and inside the music venue. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you out there.
I'm Kyle Lamont, host of ConcertCast, a podcast about road tripping to America's best music venues. And one of the hardest things about producing each episode is the editing. The solution? Mini-casts. Bite-sized morsels for your ears. Conversations that didn't make the full-length episode. Our first mini-cast is with Jon Fishman, the drummer of Phish, who I had the supreme privilege of hanging out with after his radio show in Belfast, Maine. A helping of fish food, sustenance while on the road. What kind of spread is in the green room at Madison Square Garden?
In the green room at Madison Square Garden? Well, to be honest with you, I know you're going to find this somewhat shocking. We have a band room, and in the band room, there's some almonds and cashews and a juicer, and there's some food back there, sometimes in between sets. Our catering actually will put some hot food back there sometimes too, but mostly the really nice rooms that you would think of, that would be backstage, usually are where red light management and or the Madison Square Garden, the owners' box thing area, they have when we played the Baker's Dozen there, they had this room that was loaded with all these donuts. There was Federal Donuts made donuts for their shows. Actually, first 5,000 people that walked in the door would get a donut for each night. But in the sort of owner's box green room thing, they had this really, catered setup. It's a really nice thing. But our band room was just the break room, And then I have my own room. My family has a room backstage, and there's nothing in there either. There's usually
just cups of water.
I asked for a couple grapefruits or something like that. I'll go get dinner, and then there's catering backstage where it's everybody eats. It's a cafeteria kind of thing. That's usually where all the food is. But mostly I live in the practice room. That's I walk in. There's a little room with the instruments backstage. There's a little mini drum set and everything back there. And that's kind of where I live. I just walk in and go to work and then do sound check and go to dinner and then go back to work. So the green rooms, so to speak, are really for everybody else. I don't really spend much time in them.
Do you remember sort of the evolution in the early days of Phish, when you went from Nectar's to maybe your bigger room? Do you remember a green room experience where you guys were maybe looking at each other and you were like, ooh, I think this is a little different. This might be a more...
This deli tray is a little bigger. What? They got pickles on this one. Wow. We're moving up in the world. No, I got to say, the green rooms, I don't know. Have you seen many green rooms backstage at bands? It's pretty... It all depends on the club. I mean, I got to say, in all honesty, in the early days of Phish, right, when this is probably the same for everybody out there, there would be some places you'd show up where, it was a small gig at a small club in a small town, and, there would be a couple fans there that were just, they'd bring you this greatest meal you ever eat kind of a thing, that'd be just an incredible spread, you'd be in this, crappy little room backstage, because all the backstage rooms and clubs are pretty bare bones, it's a couple chairs and things like that. And, it's some people, every once in a while, you'd show up and they would have really gone out of their way to, make you a really nice meal, put tablecloths down and make the plate, you know what I mean? I mean, it was incredible. We have people on the road now with us that's part of our crew. Wherever we go, there's a certain uniformity. They kind of set it up backstage and make it look a little homey. It's really nice.
You've traveled quite a bit.
I've
I
traveled a
think
lot.
it's safe to say that you've
Yeah.
put some miles
I have
on the
definitely put some
old
miles on the old.
car, bus,
Yeah.
whatever it is you guys
Yes.
take.
That's true.
Do you have a go-to road trip snack or like a road trip routine or something that you guys all do on tour in specific regions or like must have snacks when you're in Mississippi or driving through a certain town that you just have to stop and eat?
Yeah.
Or is there like just one thing that you guys all get around every time you're driving back and forth?
You know, I mean, my go-to road snack food, I mean, you know, that was like turkey subs, you know, that you'd get in the cooler at the, you know, and I gotta say, truck stops and, you know, Irving plazas and all that kind of stuff has come a long way since the 80s and 90s. I mean, some of these places you can stop in these truck stop areas and you can find halfway decent sushi and stuff. I mean, you know, that was not the case. You can find healthy food. You could actually eat fairly healthy on the road now just at like truck stops. You could not do that in the 90s. There was a woman, Dar Williams. Do you know Dar Williams? She's an artist, really great singer-songwriter. She's from the Northampton area. I think she's still around doing her thing. Dar put out a book years ago called The Tofu Tollbooth, which she interviewed me for a little bit because I used to do all the driving. And I was trying to eat somewhat healthy, you know? So, you know, she was making a book. It was like a map for the country for musicians on the road to find all these like co-ops, you know? Like we pull into a town and where's the local co-op, you know? This great bus driver, Dominic Placco, who showed us a lot of great eating spots. There was this one Mexican restaurant in Houston right on this strip where all the car dealerships are. And he said, you got to go to this place. You got to go. It's the greatest thing. And years before that, I had been in Chiapas, the Chiapas region of Mexico, and my traveling partner and I had gotten off this bus in San Cristobal, was this little tiny town in the Chiapas region, the mountains of Mexico. And we arrived, you know, of course, right at siesta, which we weren't used to, and we were starving. And it was this harrowing ride through the mountains of this, you know, crazy bus driver. And we get to this little town, you know, just like you see in the movie, like with the cliff roads and there's no room for two vehicles. And, you know, down below in the ravine, there's wrecked vehicles, you know, and you can see your life flash before you. So we get to this thing, we're hungry, our nerves are shot. And this woman took pity on us. And you could see, you know, all the windows were shuttered. We're walking down this little narrow street. This one woman and her daughter, they look at us and we're like, comer? Like, I don't know, like two Spanish words. And she kind of looks like, all right. She lets us in. And she brings us these little chicken enchiladas with mole sauce. I'd never had mole to that point in my life. And it was just these little chicken enchiladas. And there were like 3 or 4 on a plate. She brought us 2 plates. And there's brown sauce on them, right? That is in the top 3 things I've ever eaten, ever put in my mouth. It was, you know, like, and that for like the rest of my life, I basically have been pursuing a similar mole experience, and it's only mildly happened on 2 occasions. One, shockingly, in a restaurant in Burlington, Vermont, that was open for about 5 minutes, and they actually made dark mole sauce there. That was pretty darn good. But the only other time I found it in the United States, and believe me, I was at this one eatery in San Francisco, wonderful place, nice people, great service, but the mole sauce was like tomato. It was like a tomato basing. I don't even know why they even called it mole. That should have been called salsa, you know? But at any rate, this place outside Houston, we did the gig, and we were playing in clubs still, and we stopped at this place, and it was like 2 a.m. Or I don't know, maybe it was midnight or 1. It was, you know, you wouldn't think the place would just be opening, right? So we play, and it's, you know, car dealerships, this strip, and we pull up to this restaurant, and it's like in this strip mall type thing. It's no little window in a street in a little town in Mexico. I mean, this is like it's like strip malls and car dealerships and bright lit, you know, in this little building, and we pull in this big, huge parking lot with this little building. We get out of the bus, we go walking over, and there's like 20 of us. There's a whole entourage of people came with us. And there's this 5-piece mariachi band standing outside the front. They weren't right out front. They came out, and they're, the black and white, the suits. They're dressed to kill, and they're great. This is like a great, legit killer band at 2 a.m. or something. And there's no one in there. But there's a full staff. There's waiters and waitresses, and there's 5 or 6 cooks back there. There's a lot of people. I'm thinking, well, did we just miss the flood or what? So we go in, they sit us at this big table, and I ask the woman, how's the mole? She says, oh, the mole sauce here is the best. And the way she said it, I was like, yes, it's good. And it was totally legit. It was great. It was as good as the place in Chiapas. It was like home. And I wish I could remember the name of this place now. Anyway, over the course of the next hour, all of these Mexican women and men dressed like they had just come from a wedding. The women were wearing these dresses, and the guys had tuxedos on, but they were like the Mexican version with instead of the bow tie, they had the little long tie thing, and the buckles and the shoes. Everybody shined, and I guess that's the way in the Mexican culture. It was like that. The restaurant opened at midnight, and people come rolling in, and they go till sunrise. There was music, everybody was dancing and drinking, and it was right in this restaurant. But it looked like they had just come from someplace dancing and partying and whatever. But it was I think they were starting their night, and we were just there finishing the night, having dinner. But man, oh man, that was pretty amazing.
Have you stopped there a couple times since that?
No,
that was it. That was it.
I stopped there once, and I want to find that place again. I got to find out from Dominic the name of that place again. There's this pie place as you come down Route 1 in California. As you're going through the sequoias and stuff, and you're right up in that area. If you're coming from the south, as you're entering to where the Redwoods start to, there's several sections, that you kind of drive through, and then it's not Redwoods for a while, and then it is again. I think in that first section or second section, there's some place they just sell pies, and it's incredible pies. And there's a place in Detroit. There's an Asian restaurant outside Detroit. That's incredible. But anyway.
Subscribe to Concertcast the podcast on your podcast app of choice to listen to our full-length episode, where Fishman and I talk about his favorite music venues.
There's this place, Blossom in Ohio, it's like you're on the inside of an upside-down ship. The shell inside is this wooden, it looks like the inside of a wooden hull of a ship.
And we even have a late-night studio caller.
WBFY. Oh, I guess I got to answer it first, not WBFY.
Subscribe to Concertcast on your podcast app of choice and type in concertcast.live to build your own music-centric itinerary and to learn how you can be part of the show. And find us on Spotify to download a Maine music playlist. This has been a Good To Go Studios production made in Maine. And Mark Tuckashen is our resident mastermind. Special thanks to Jon Fishman, 100.9 WBFY Belfast Community Radio Station, Eric Klossmeyer, Chris Katsaris, and thank you for listening.